Saturday, 1st of February, 2025 at 3:10 p.m. here on Vashon Island, Washington, United States of America. Welcome once again to our cosmic journey. It is your Dev and Design podcast with a newly 46-year-old and an oldly 50-year-old making the world's best astrology software together again. Hello, I am your designer, Jake. That is your engineer, Trey. Hello, Trey.
Hello, Jake.
I have my Timberland Regional Library shirt, which is one of my birthday presents. My birthday was yesterday. Thank you for the birthday wishes. You put them all below here. I appreciate that.
Also, you skipped quickly past the fact that we're on Vashon Island, not
a
place we normally are.
That's also we've decided to. We were on an island, and so we decided to have a birthday. So we decided to go to a different island, otherwise known as Vashon Island. And of course, as always, we're at the library. Another great thing is, here we are. Another great thing is that we've got these mics that might sound better, but if there's mic issues, I apologize. Do not touch your mic at all, ever. So we're very excited about all of that. But this whole trip on Vashon has been pretty dope. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, it's been really great. Our Airbnb is like right on the water, like literally on the water. You go off of the balcony and you're on the beach. It's totally not something that anybody could build at this point with like setback rules and all that kind of stuff. But it's a really cool place, and we're having a lovely time celebrating Jake's birthday. Yeah. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday to me. Today's episode, my birthday episode, is of course called Web Assemble, and we will have a check-in question. We'll talk a little bit about our progress that we've done through kind of redoing things into this new app thing and website that we've talked about now for 2 episodes. Talk a little bit about designing for aspects and, maybe some other things. But before we get to all of that, we of course get to the check-in question.
Dun, dun, dun.
Here it is. I would like you to tell me, Mr. Henry, what is your favorite mundane task to do? Mundane, not in the terms of astrology, but mundane just as in, kind of an everyday task that you like to do. What is your favorite mundane task?
Oh, does making my coffee in the morning count as mundane, or is that like
100%?
Okay.
I could have predicted. I should have written on a piece of paper that was grinding coffee is kind of your favorite thing. Talk a little bit about your mundane coffee process.
Oh yeah, it's very fidgety. I use a Flair manual espresso machine, and I grind my own coffee beans and make hand pulled espresso shots in the morning, and it's great. It's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
The end.
I think my favorite mundane task that I like to do is I like to put on, I get to go solo sometimes too. I like to put on a cooking show in the upper left-hand corner of my computer screen, usually something like really garbagey. I tend to like British cooking shows the most. And then I will do something like make German flashcards. Or the new thing is going to be making German and Dutch flashcards together. And I really love just this mindless task of like making flashcards and watching garbage cooking television. I don't cook at all. I mean, I do cook, but I don't make anything that's on there. I just find it great. It does give me the confidence to critique other people's cooking in a way that I appreciate. I can look at someone else's meal and say, that's garbage, but like, I can't do anything about it. So that's great. I like that it gives me that confidence. Good check-in, everyone. Good check-in. Yeah. Mr. Henry, do you want to talk a little bit about your progress? What's going on with you?
Yeah, in spite of, fair amount of traveling and stuff like that, made really good progress this week. And I will quickly show a demo which will be unimpressive because it's primarily demonstrating that technology is wired up correctly. And so it's not super sexy to look at again, but it is sexy from we have got the implementation to the point where it's doing the correct thing. So what I will show here is first I will go to a web browser. And we got to show this screen before with the Imagine Fancy Astrology stuff here. However, this time you can see that there's a sun, moon, and ascendant value here. And this sun, moon, and ascendant value were populated by our actually I just use a hotkey to pop up the dev tools here, by our WebAssembly version of the Swiss ephemeris. And here you can see that took 1.67 milliseconds to render, which is amazing. That's very, very fast. And then I'm just kind of showing here in the console that this does include, in fact, like all of the information that we need for everything. So this is like all house systems. That doesn't matter. But then we have like Sun through Pluto app like nodes, even some of the big asteroids here. So yeah, it's great because, well, let me just finish the demo really quick. So this is just showing this in the web browser, and then moving over to our fancy new app, which this is running on Linux, but still it'll work the same basically on all platforms. You can see that this is actually running in our app, and it is the same, which is great. And the other really cool thing about this is that it is the same exact build of the Swiss ephemeris for as above and for so below. It means that I can write the library that we use for talking to the Swiss ephemeris one time and use it from everywhere. Whereas before, our backend technology required us to use a slightly different build and a slightly different way of talking to the Swiss ephemeris because of our backend technology choices. So below was in a different platform. And that made it so that we kind of had to have two code bases for doing very similar things.
If you've got one code base and you only have to fix it once and it doesn't break in two separate things, you don't have to maintain two separate code bases. Not that they were vastly different or hugely divergent, but like it being kind of in one place with one kind of rotating mechanism means that when it stops rotating, you only have to fix this rotating mechanism here as opposed to fixing it here and then fixing the rotating mechanism you duplicated over there, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that was actually not really planned with this shift, because the whole business decision, as we've talked about in the last couple of episodes, the whole business decision here was that we needed to provide a fully desktop version that provided like full offline mode and sync when you're online, so that people could work on trains and planes and all that stuff. So that was what kind of was the business direction that drove this shift. But as we were doing it, I was like, oh, our technology choices actually mean that we can like run this same WebAssembly thing from the front end and the back end and from everywhere. And that means we could just have one library to talk to it. We just can write it once and then use that same thing from both the back end and the front end. So it's really cool. I'm very excited about it.
I am too. And like Sheree said, it's already amazing. It's even going to manifest into more and more amazingness as we continue on. One thing that we have been putting off because we have not had a chance to get it coded into the platform, because we do the replatforming, is aspects. And I want to tell you a little story about aspects that I love, because I think it shows you how amazing and complex and ridiculous astrology can be. I'm doing this thing, I'm trying to get aspects into the software, and part of that is designing the relationships. We've talked about the relationships in software very often, right? So a point, or more specifically, what's called a point placement, Saturn that sits in the first house in Virgo, at 16 degrees 39 minutes, will aspect other planets. Now, here's the thing about aspects that you probably know as good astrologers. Depending on whether you practice a modern tradition or a Renaissance tradition or a Hellenistic tradition, what is an aspect can change. And also the quality, not the quality of the aspect, but I guess the strength of the aspect or its influence on a planet can change. So I'm going to show you something that is incredibly simple, seemingly simple, that turned into a bit of a rat hole. So what you're seeing here, I pointed the wrong way, is a document that is one piece of an attribute that sits on point placement. If you have a point such as Saturn and it has a time and date associated with it, and so you have a time, date, and a point, it will then sit somewhere within signs and houses, things like that. It has a relationship to aspects where you can read here. It says, this point placement has 0 to n aspects, meaning 0 or many, with other points that influences its expression. Okay, super easy, straightforward. There's some metadata here at the beginning. Yeah, this work needs to be filled out better later. That's what this story is about. What does better mean? And what is later? Later is today and better
Later is now.
And better, yeah, later is now and better is you can be the judge whether this is better or not. So when you're doing what's called object-oriented UX, which we've talked about many times, when you have a relationship between two things, you need to figure out the mechanics, the cardinality, the sort, the group, the filters, and the dependency on the host. I'm not going to explain all of that to you because that's a bunch of design hooey. I just want to point out one thing on here that is really important. Sorting. You have many aspects. How should you sort these aspects? Good question. I wrote sorted by aspect rank by default. Can change to aspect strength or partile datetime. This sort is super sticky. Let's talk about what these words mean. An aspect rank is in some traditions, there are some aspects that are more important than others, okay? However, not all traditions believe this to be true. So we have this thing called aspect strength or partile datetime. Now there's two problems here. Some aspects will never go exact, or what I was calling partile. And so what do you do about things that never go exact or never become partile? Good question. Okay, that will be not today later, that'll be later. We'll deal with that later. Let's deal with today's later, which is, what did I say here? I said, can be sorted by aspect strength over there. What does aspect strength mean? Well, Trey's software, the old one, Urania, makes a distinction that the closer that two planets become exact is its strength. And you can see that in Urania because the line will become brighter and more vibrant. And so it becomes brighter and more vibrant as it becomes exact, and then it fades away. While that is an interesting way of showing aspect strength, that only really holds for 2 of the 3 traditions. Certainly for modern and kind of for Renaissance in a different way. So the question then becomes, what do you do for Hellenistic astrology? And when I did something so simple as asking the question, what is aspect strength when it comes to Hellenistic tradition in astrology? I went down such a deep and dark rabbit hole of going into Project Hindsight, into 16 hours of Robert Schmidt lectures, and the interpretation of the Robert Schmidt lectures, which is basically an interpretation of what's called the Antiochus text. Everyone has been trying to figure out what this Antiochus text summary means when it comes to Hellenistic astrology, and then trying to figure out what it means when it comes to the quality of planets and when thinking about aspect strength. So I had a very simple question here, which is just one line. It says, sorted by aspect rank by default can change to aspect strength. And then I said, for each of the 3 traditions that we are going to care about, what is aspect strength? And I have created a monster inside of my head of what aspect strength is. Because the answer is not simple. I can't just do bean counting for you and say, it has these bonifications, it has these maltreatments, and if I add the bonifications and I subtract the maltreatments, I'll come up with a number, and that's the way I can show you strength. The Hellenistic astrologers are like, absolutely do not do that. That is 100% wrong. There's nothing in the tradition that says that. Anyways, I have never worked on something, I've never designed something where I could write something so seemingly simple as, it's over here, so seemingly simple as the word aspect strength, and go into essentially me reading 3 texts and listening to 16 hours of audio in order to figure out the answer to that. I mean, there's a bunch of math that goes into it, but then it's just like, none of these really have to do with strength. They have to do with like things that you need to surface towards the astrologer, but then they have to make a determination. But like, I have a very simple question, which is how am I going to sort these aspects for you so you know what are the most important or the least important aspects? And the answer from basically all Hellenistic astrologers since like the early 2000s or maybe the 90s is like, be very careful. You are not there to be a bean counter for an astrologer and have an astrologer basically go into kind of a cruise control mode. And software today does that. And
A
it's
lot
bad.
of it, yeah, a lot of it does, and this is why a lot of astrologers that are teaching more traditional forms of astrology will also like tell you just like turn all the options off, turn
Yeah.
like don't use fancy software, just like or even like use an ephemeris, just because software has gotten this really, really wrong over a long period of time. And, going back to our original posit for the entire reason behind Cosmic is that like we want to give you the tools that enable you to do the astrology. We're not trying to do the astrology for you.
Mr. Henry, what should the good viewer do on this beautiful or blustery winter day?
Yeah, or both. It hailed and then it was sunny within about
exactly.
10 minutes of each other. You should enjoy the coolness, enjoy the cold. Get warm inside and then go outside and get cool. It's good for you.
All right.
It's good for
It's
your
all about your
vasodilation.
temperatures. Get your warms, get your cools, find both of those inside of you, and do that on this beautiful day, this Saturday, or whatever day you watch this video. And again, whatever day you watch it, it's the right day to do it. You do you. Be well, take care. We love you very much. We're going to see you next week. Take care and goodbye.
Bye.